The New York Times is reporting that former President Biden told them that he had orally granted all the pardons and commutations issued at the end of his term, meaning he did not personally sign the official warrants for clemency. Biden told the Times that he did, in fact, make every single one of the clemency decisions himself, but says that the Autopen was used to sign the warrants since there were a lot of them. Now, according to the Times, Biden called Trump and Republicans liars for saying he was incapacitated and his aides used the Autopen without his authorization. Alicia, I see you're shaking your head. Your response to this?
Well, I have so many responses to this because we're supposed to believe this at this point. It's really hard to swallow that statement there, that he said that he made the decision on, quote, every single one, when we know from so much reporting that there was a limit to his time where people had access to him. So there were decisions that were made, quote unquote, after hours. We know that for a fact. And so to say that it was every single one, I'm going to have to see the receipts on this one because, and this is the question before Congress right now. They're trying to figure it out. That's why we have a line of aides and staffers coming up to testify. Who knows what we'll find out, but it's an interesting statement.
David can barely sit in his chair. You guys aren't seeing this at home. He is literally dying to get in here, David.
You're both onto something American people need to pay attention. Time, math. How many commutations and pardons in one day, and how many hours would it take for him to do this individually? It strains incredulity. Remember Hillary Clinton said willing suspension of disbelief? Just do the math on what it would take for him to do that individually when he couldn't cognitively get through more than a few hours a day of work.
You know, why weigh in on this now? I mean, isn't this just adding fuel to the fire?
Exactly what was going through my mind, Lisa, because these individuals, look, Ron Klain, others are expected to go up and be deposed on Capitol Hill. And, you know, he is not doing them any favors. I mean, look, we watched the former president fight with the short stairs on airplanes, stages at, across the country, fighting with teleprompters. It was all very evident in front of us. And now he's choosing to fight with the Autopen because he doesn't like it.
But notice something he said there.
Yeah.
His exact words matter. It's very lawyer-like and Clinton-like. I orally did this. This is why, watch very carefully, because I've seen this play from the Clintons, from others. They come out and they make a very clear lawyer but somewhat ambiguous statement that you really can't challenge and prove. Orally is a key word.
By the way, as the journalist in me, so it's worth noting that the interview, we're told, from the New York Times was only about 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. Didn't want to expose himself too long because, surely the New York Times is wanting to know, too, like, OK, if we sit with him for 30 minutes, 40 minutes, will this become confusing for him? Will he exhibit some of that mental acuity decline? But apparently, this interview with the New York Times is only about 10 minutes.
Come see what Elmo did.
Well, what have you done, Elmo?
Well, Elmo wrote his own song. Do Snuffy and Big Bird want to hear it?
Oh, sure.
Okay. That's Fauci. That's Fauci. They don't understand the things I say on Twitter. All my neighbors, MAGA. Fauci.
It's been a long weekend. Got to be honest with you. I needed that. That was good. That was great. Today's Monday, July 14th, 2025. Something we weren't planning on covering off the top, but Elmo did get hacked. Elmo's X handle got hacked, and, can't really repeat the tweets that were sent. Go look them up yourself if you'd like. We're all for transparency on this program, and that's hysterical. All right. Well done, Jerry. Jerry's job every single day is to hopefully crack me up before we do the show, because we are going to have one hell of a show this morning, ladies and gentlemen. Things have changed drastically. all of our work is leading to something that is going to be mission critical for this movement, which is the restoration of trust. You can't have a political movement if your base doesn't trust you. They need to trust you. And I am a massive fan of President Trump, and I'm a massive fan of what this administration is doing, and I say this out of love. I say this as a friend. That you can't promise your base that you will reveal everything about MLK, JFK, Jeffrey Epstein, and then not do it. You can't pull the football away. Not now. And there's an out, which is incredible that's just happened. Ghislaine Maxwell says she's going to testify to Congress. We'll cover that in just a moment, ladies and gentlemen. We'll also be in Congress tomorrow. We'll be interviewing Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, live. Stay tuned for a time. We're working that out. We'll be live. Private interview in his office. Interviewing Mike Johnson live. Get ready. You're going to ask the questions. Hear me out. You're going to ask the questions. We will have a system where we will be checking the chat and we'll be asking your questions live. Mark it down. This is going to be a massive moment of faith and trust between the powers that we sent to Washington to destroy the deep state and the deep state itself. You wouldn't believe it, but Israeli prime ministers are fighting with Tucker Carlson. We'll have that in just a second. And Biden said he had to use the Autopen because he was too tired. And so literally all the pardons are fake. Oh, we got more news on that coming up. Laura Trump will be on the program. Let's freaking go, okay? Laura Trump on the show. We are ready to rock with Roger Stone on the show live as well. So much to get to today. My name is Benny Johnson, and this is The Benny Show. Let's freaking go. Okay. Interesting little ad here off the top. Let's say that you want to hide information. Okay? Not saying that you have anything to hide, right? But nobody wants the deep state to have access to all their files. Nobody wants to have criminals have access to all their files, photos, pictures, birth certificates, marriage certificates, homes, deeds, and so on. Ladies and gentlemen, you got to make sure that you are securing yourself and protecting yourself. And maybe you don't have the FBI to cover everything up for you. You probably don't, but Bunker can help you. This is the most important act that you can take. Cybercrime is at an all-time high. Hackers from around the world can hack into your phone and steal everything from you. You should get a Bunker family plan. Bunker was developed by experts with 25 years of experience in catching cyber criminals and fighting cybercrime. They created Bunker in order to create a literal digital bunker for your family to make sure that you have security, to share messages, photos, files, all of it encrypted. Everything connecting you with the people that you approve of and only approve of. No spam, no surveillance, no imposters ever. A password manager to help you safeguard all of your family's online accounts and lock them down. Very important in the modern era, ladies and gentlemen. Do it today, okay? It kind of ties into what we're talking about today. Visit their website right now, bunker.com. That's BUNKR.life/Benny. Correction. Bunker.life/Benny. Hey, Alex, you need to bold that. Write it really big. It's a unique URL, but I'm going to say it again. BUNKR.life/Benny. It's right there on your screen, ladies and gentlemen. 25% off the code Benny. Family plan today. Let's rock and roll. Okay, somebody who got life. Somebody who got a lot of life this weekend was Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein should have gotten life in prison when he was first charged with solicitation of underage prostitution in 2008 here in the state of Florida. Just so happened to have a very interesting conversation with the Attorney General in the state of Florida. There's a lot of motion. There's a lot of things happening behind the scenes that are really exciting about this moment. Because of this movement, and because you refuse to pay taxes to child predator cults, we're going to save this nation. It's an amazing thing. And so much happened over the weekend. And I guess I should just start with keeping the main thing, which was this weekend in Tampa, Florida, Student Action Summit, Turning Point USA. There was a series of speeches that just burned the freaking issue to the ground. Some of the biggest names in the entire movement: Steve Bannon, Megyn Kelly, Charlie Kirk, Tucker Carlson. Humbly, to a much lesser extent, myself, were all on stage demanding the release of the Epstein client list. And without a doubt, and let me just tell you from first-hand experience, this is the number one motivating issue for the base. You don't have a political movement if you don't have a base. And if that base feels like you're betraying them or not telling them the truth, then they're not going to like that. I love President Trump. I'm not saying turn on Trump or anything like that. Okay? This is without question, the MAGA movement is without question the best vessel forward. And I think the MAGA movement could really be a durable 100-year movement. What I'm saying is that there are pressure point issues that have to be resolved here. And what happened this weekend was we were able to demonstrate what the pressure looked like. Here's a couple of good examples here, right? Here's Tucker Carlson. It's probably the speech that went the most viral. Tucker Carlson talking about Jeffrey Epstein at Student Action Summit, ladies and gentlemen, and explaining what the real problem is here. Take it away.
The fact that the U.S. government, the one that I voted for, refused to take my question seriously and instead said, case closed, shut up, conspiracy theorist, was too much for me. And I don't think the rest of us should be satisfied with that. And by the way, let me just say really quickly, because I was so mad about it that I think I found out part of what's going on. I think we are going to find out more. And I think the truth, for whatever it's worth, in case you're interested, is that the DOJ didn't release lots of incriminating sex videos with Epstein and his billionaire pals because they don't have them. They don't have them because when the original search warrant was served, 2007, I think, possibly 2006, I think 7, it was basically designed to protect Epstein. The search warrant was written in such a way to make sure that the feds never got their hands on the actually incriminating evidence. It's another way of saying the cover-up has been going on since 2007, almost 20 years. And so the real question is not, was Jeffrey Epstein a weirdo who was abusing girls? Yes, we can answer that. The real question is, why was he doing this, on whose behalf, and where did the money come from? And those are the questions that need to be answered. And I think it's entirely fair to ask them. And it's not adequate to say anyone who asked them is somehow desecrating the memory of little girls who died in Texas. I'm not going to put up with that answer. I don't care who gives that answer. That is not acceptable. And I think the real answer is Jeffrey Epstein was working on behalf of intel services, probably not American. And we have every right to ask, on whose behalf was he working? How does a guy go from being a math teacher at the Dalton School in the late 70s with no college degree to having multiple airplanes, a private island, and the largest residential house in Manhattan? Where did all the money come from? And no one has ever gotten to the bottom of that because no one has ever tried.
Tucker Carlson getting at the very root and heart of the issue here, which is that you're not allowed to go commit crimes on our soil as a foreign nation, and we're just supposed to shut up and take it. I don't care if you're our greatest ally. That just doesn't, that includes so many countries. That includes Mexico, Saudi Arabia, all of these countries, China. Where do you think the fentanyl comes from? Like, maybe put a stop to it now and put a stop to it eternally and put a stop to it on all fronts. But yes, absolutely, there is an enormous preponderance of credible evidence that Jeffrey Epstein was working with Israeli intelligence. Let me just go off the top of the dome, okay? Top of the dome here. Don't consider myself the world's greatest expert, but, well, we have asked a few questions about this. Jeffrey Epstein's madame, the procurer of the entire sex trafficking operation, Ghislaine Maxwell's father, was Mossad. Got a state funeral in Israel. The Israeli prime minister at the time that was eulogizing him said that the benefits to the state of Israel that Robert Maxwell gave, the story will never fully be told. The guy literally arms trafficked, war trafficked, broke every Geneva Convention imaginable on behalf of that state. That's just a matter of historic record and fact. That's Ghislaine Maxwell's dad. Jeffrey Epstein's pseudo-father was Bill Barr's dad, who was a founding member of the OSS, which led to the creation of the CIA, who hired Jeffrey Epstein at the Dalton School, even though he didn't have a college degree. who wrote a book about how you can rule a planet through pedophilia and entrapping the population through blackmail. He wrote the book. It's called Space Relations. Anyway, the point is that Jeffrey Epstein is raised by the CIA guy. Ghislaine Maxwell is raised by this Mossad guy. They put them together. And then, lo and behold, what happens next? Well, multiple Israeli prime ministers literally lived with Jeffrey Epstein. Ehud Barak's one of them, but he's not the only one. Jeffrey Epstein, there are many emails connecting Jeffrey Epstein to his ability to open up resources and opportunities in Israel. And I guess if you're looking for something that's totally anecdotal, how about this one? On this program, I asked Jeffrey Epstein's lawyer, Alan Dershowitz. I know you all love Alan so very much. You all love Dersh so much. Don't worry, we check the comments. The point is that Dersh knows what he knows. I'll put that one up too, man. That's a great article, Klein. Thank you for grabbing that. Just so happens that Jeffrey Epstein bragged about being a CIA agent and a foreign operative. By the way, the importance of the CIA in this story is woefully undercovered. The CIA is not allowed to run ops on American soil. Now, that's not saying that they don't. Of course they do, but that would be a big time naughty thing for them to do. They're a clandestine organ of our federal government. They are not supposed to do that to American citizens. So let's go with the Boy Scout answer here and ask yourself this. Who would benefit? Which intel agency that's not allowed to operate in America would benefit from an island in international waters to do their crimes on? Bueller? Anything? Anyway, we asked Dersh, who I know you're all big fans of. We asked Dersh, hey, you were Epstein's lawyer. Was he Mossad? And in an answer that is still bewildering to this day, Dershowitz says, no, he wasn't Mossad, except for that one time. That one time that he asked for me to connect him with a bunch of heads of government in Israel. And I did. And he flew in. And one of the guys was probably Mossad. So, there was that one time that he definitely did that meeting. But, whatever, right? Don't pay too much attention to it. You have that, Cliff Klein. How long is it? I mean, sure. Why not? Just us contributing to the evidence collection on Jeffrey Epstein more than the DOJ has. Here you go. We're able to preserve a plea deal for Jeffrey Epstein in 2008 when you were his lawyer. Alex Acosta made a pretty stunning claim as to why that plea deal went forward and why he wasn't able to get a heavier prosecution against Jeffrey Epstein, saying, I was told that Epstein belonged to Intel and to leave it alone. And this is what Acosta said before a Senate committee looking to confirm him in the first Trump term. Can you expound on that? Could you unpack that for us?
Yeah, I would be shocked if that were true. Jeffrey Epstein was not a reliable person. I can't imagine that any intelligence service would be using him, but I've heard the claim. I heard the claim that the Mossad, the Israeli intelligence agents, used him just the way they used Ghislaine Maxwell's father, Maxwell. And, you never know. One thing about intelligence services, they act in secret. So you never know. But I can't imagine any thoughtful intelligence service using a guy like Jeffrey Epstein. But it's certainly possible. If so, I didn't know anything about it. In fact, once when I was in Israel writing a book, he called me. He was in France. And he said, I've never been to Israel. I don't know anybody in Israel. Could I come visit you for a day? And he did. He flew his plane. And I took him on a walk in the Shuk, in the Arab area. We had lunch with some prominent Israelis, judges, etc. He asked me to put together a lunch. And then about 9 o'clock at night, he got on his plane as he left us. As far as I know, that was the only time he was ever in Israel. But who knows? He could have fooled me, too.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. I just the one time that I took him there and connected him with Mossad. Tucker Carlson going viral this weekend, ruffling a lot of feathers, saying, no, trust me, it's because the United States is protecting their foreign intelligence relationships that we are not getting the Epstein list. Here's just one more double down from Tucker Carlson this weekend, very quickly here.
You agree with Candace Owens that the reason we are not going to see the client list is because Israel is implicated?
Israel is implicated. I don't know that there is a client list. Dan Bongino got shafted, completely shafted. The fact is, she got on television on Fox News and started saying stuff like, I've got the client list on my desk. And actually, no, you don't.
When you told your wife, my career is changing after 14 years, did her reaction surprise you?
She thought they were really anti-Christian.
Do you agree?
Oh, of course. If you said on Fox, hey, like, how's Bethlehem doing? Whoa. I mean, you'd be out of there.
What is wrong with Elon?
Can't have two alpha bitches in the same kitchen. I just had that actually over the 4th of July.
All right. Okay. So the pertinent part is the Epstein part, and I really encourage you to go watch. There's a 3-minute clip. Maybe we'll have time to play it in the show, but we just don't have time right now. There's a 3-minute clip of Tucker Carlson really breaking down, this relationship. And now that has boiled over. Breaking news here, ladies and gentlemen. And why don't we do the stinger, ladies and gentlemen? Breaking news: Tucker Carlson is fighting with the Prime Minister of Israel on X. Let's freaking go. Naftali Bennett, click through, please. Naftali Bennett decided to send a shot across the bow. Now, this is the former prime minister of Israel. He's also somebody who, is in the running to perhaps maybe become the prime minister again in the future. He heads a very a powerful Israeli political party. Now, this is remarkable. He's gone directly at Tucker Carlson. Shakespeare has this line that says, the lady doth protest too much, right? What the hell are you doing exactly, sir, coming after Tucker? He's an American. He has every right to ask a question. And in fact, you have an obligation to answer. Let's read. As former Israeli prime minister, with the Mossad having reported directly to me, sure, I say to you with 100% certainty, the accusation that Jeffrey Epstein somehow worked for Israel or Mossad running a blackmail ring is categorically false. Now, this is a remarkable post. Why would they have to even say this? What, tell me about how you beat your wife, right? Like, if the accusations, the only person who's bothered by something like that is somebody who beats his wife. If the accusations are patently false, then you just chuckle them off and walk away. And you know how many fake things are said about us or this show on the internet every single freaking day? You didn't just check the mentions, okay? I don't, but sometimes I get a chuckle out of them. The cops show up and knock on your door and they have 2 shovels. And they're like, we're going to dig in your backyard because we think you're a serial killer. And you bury people in your backyard. You kill them and you bury people. The innocent man says, you know what? I'm going to get some iced tea and some lemonade. And I'm going to sit out back and watch you dig. It's going to be a funny afternoon. Okay? Have a good time. Kappa, right? A guilty person profusely sweats and calls his lawyer and says, get a warrant, right? These are not the behaviors of innocent people. If Tucker Carlson is making a totally spurious and insane claim that doesn't merit any person of high stature responding, then you just don't respond. But if what Tucker is saying has perhaps even a scintilla or a shadow of truth to it, then it'll pluck the nerves of certain people, like this guy, and it'll say something like this: "Wow, Epstein's conduct, both the criminal and merely despicable, had nothing whatsoever to do with the state of Israel, except for Epstein's lawyer on my show saying, of course, oh, yeah, he was having a great time with Mossad in Israel." Epstein never worked for the Mossad. The accusations lie being peddled by prominent online personalities. Tucker Carlson, pretending that they know things that they don't. They just make things up, say it with confidence, and the lies stick because it's Israel. There's a vicious wave of slander and lies against my country and my people. We won't take it. You won't take it. You won't take it. What do you mean you won't take it? What are you talking about, sir? You take billions every year in foreign aid. Israel is one of the richest countries on earth. Why do you take billions every year in foreign aid? Why don't you not take that? If you're not going to take it. I'm not sure, I'm going to pull the full Wakanda. I'm going to go full Wakanda on this guy. We don't do that here. Okay? You're trying to silence Tucker. We don't do that here. That's not what we do here. Right? That's not, Tucker's allowed to have any idea that he wants. In fact, you, as the agent of a government, which is our servants, by the way, you are our servant. You are also like a welfare child of the United States. You have an obligation, in fact, to answer questions like this. Sure, just like answer the question. Okay, so he didn't work for the Mossad. Do you have any evidence? Other than you just like banging a pot with a spoon, do you have any evidence of that? Have you presented any evidence? This is the problem that we currently have. There is a crisis of lack of evidence being presented. And when we're told to just shut up and move along, shut up, move along, shut up. We looked into it, move along. That era's over, bro. Whether it's you or whether it's Pam Bondi or anyone. Shut up. We looked into it, move along. Nope. This guy guarantees that we won't move along, in fact. And so this is a real problem. We don't do that here. You know, you're not allowed to attack Tucker. You're not allowed to sit there and like go after Tucker. Tucker has every right to ask these questions. Tucker probably knows more about the intelligence agencies than you. Tucker's father, of course, like as Tucker has readily admitted, Tucker probably has some of the best sources inside American intel, and that's where he's getting a lot of this. So like to say that he's just that Tucker's just some crackpot crazy person is insane, and Tucker's responded. Good for him. You just won't take it anymore, says Tucker. Instead of issuing threats on social media, why don't you sit down for an interview on Epstein's ties to the Israeli government? We'll reach out to your office this morning. Good for you, Tucker. Way to go. Great. Cool. Okay, so Israel, according to Grok, Israel gets close to $4 billion a year. Okay. Oh, okay. So 13 billion. That these are, according to some figures, it kind of depends on how you push the math here. Got it? All right. So you're not going to take it anymore? Why don't you not take that anymore? There's a couple strings tied to the $14 billion we give one of the richest countries on earth a year. What? Why do we do that? Does Israel give us any money? I don't think so. Where's our check? When was the last time you saw a humanitarian effort here in this country led by Israel, right? Like for a poorer, impoverished people in this country, or defense of our southern border led by Israel, or a pothole being filled, in this country led by Israel, like paid for by Israel. Well, that's insane. It's insane. It's insane. So don't insult us all. Take the enormous amount of money from our treasury, and then come after a guy like Tucker, or any journalist in America for that matter, who's doing their best to get to the truth on all this. And it didn't need to get to this point. This is I think the argument of this show over the last many days has been, you have pressure cookers in society, and those pressure cookers fill up and they get really hot and they get ready to explode. And what you have to do is you have to do the pressure release valve in order to keep the the boiler from exploding. And the way to increase the pressure exponentially in a Chernobyl level meltdown is to be we looked into it, shut up. And then to disrespect people. It's the worst possible way to handle it. Here's Glenn Greenwald. One of Epstein's closest friends was former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak. A key source of Epstein's vast wealth, though mysterious, was from Les Wexner, whose primary life cause is Israel. Ghislaine Maxwell's father, billionaire Robert Maxwell, was a Mossad agent who mysteriously died after that was reported. Though Maxwell was British, Israel gave him a state funeral. Epstein got red carpet treatment when visiting Israel. Epstein bankrolled major investments in Israeli tech, and so on, evidence below. But fine, if Epstein had no ties to Israeli intelligence or intel service, which is theoretically possible, why can't Pam Bondi, CIA, or FBI just say that? Sagar and Jetty. Here's a list of Israeli prime ministers linked to Epstein. Shimon Peres introduced Ehud Barak to Epstein. Ehud Olmert, named as Epstein associate. Ehud Barak, connections too vast to paraphrase. Netanyahu met with J.P. Morgan after apparent Epstein intro. And then there's all the corresponding articles. Not here to there's something else going on here, and what's going to happen is the more you say, shut up, don't look at it, the more people are going to look at it, and they're going to start asking questions, and they're going to come to the conclusion that there's something much bigger going on, and that's what's trying to be hidden here. I guess it does make sense. The U.S. attorney who spiked the case, Alex Acosta, is on the record, this is Megyn Kelly speaking, is on the record saying Epstein was an intel agent and that he was told to get rid of the prosecution. If Epstein was an agent, it's clearly either for the U.S. or Israel. Both deny it. What would you expect them to say? He had multiple odd Israeli connections. This denial is meaningless. But, the lady doth protest too much. Anyway, I don't have any proof. What I do have is I have the experience of standing on stage in front of 70,000 roaring MAGA base activists and getting this response when I said release the Epstein. Like, what I'm saying here is that this is a core issue. It's a core issue that has not been handled thus far correctly. Here's the reaction when I just blurted it out on stage.
That's 50 Cent. That's our rapper. This is their rapper. Okay. Oh, had to do it. Had to do it. Release the Epstein files, am I right? Yeah. Had to do it.
Listen to that roar. Ooh. I can tell you what, man. I mean, it's one thing to hear it here, but to hear it in the room, to be on stage, it shakes. It shakes the arena. We're inside of a sports arena, effectively. It's from the rafters. It's like you just won the championship. Megyn Kelly here in this tweet, nuking whoever, Naftali Bennett, who's telling somehow our journalists to shut up and refusing to answer questions on the record like nobody will. Megyn Kelly here on stage saying exactly what she thinks about this whole current crisis. Let's go.
Let me just ask you, make some noise if you care about the Jeffrey Epstein scandal. I blame Pam Bondi. I'll tell you why, okay? I have nothing, yes, incompetence, yes. I have nothing against Pam Bondi as a human being. I was fine with her nomination and her confirmation, and she's been loyal to the president, and I get that President Trump needs a loyal attorney general. Look what happened with Sessions the first time. He went away, and then the next thing you know, we had the Mueller investigation, and it was a nightmare. But there are a lot of other people who can be loyal and competent in that job. Here, she is the reason that things are unraveling around this story right now that virtually all of the Republican Party cares deeply about. It's also true that Dan Bongino and Kash Patel had questions about Epstein before they took office, okay, before they went into the FBI. But once they joined the FBI, they said nothing. They've kept their mouths shut about Epstein. You have not seen them, except for one joint appearance with Dan and Kash on Fox, running all over the media looking for attention on this, yes, clickbaity story. Who have you seen? Pam Bondi. She has never missed an opportunity to go on television and dangle sweet nothings that might be coming your way. Try to lead you to believe that she's got it. It's on her desk. It's coming tomorrow. You're going to see something on Epstein. And it was a tease. So you either believe that Pam Bondi was telling the truth then or that she's telling the truth now. But both cannot be true. She was either lying when she went on Fox News all those times saying, I've got it, we're looking at it, wait until you see it, it's horrible. Or she's lying in her 2-page memo that they released on a Sunday night at the tail end of a holiday weekend to Axios, as if Axios is where we all go for our news. Hell no. She went to someone she knew would not kick the tires on the story, and without signing the memo, dropped it in the dead of night and said, that's it, take the crumbs and be happy. Refused to come out and give a presser. Come out and give a press conference. Stand there for 6 hours to the point where people are dying of boredom. They've asked all their questions. That's how you put a scandal to rest.
It's true. And it's totally unnecessary. This is what makes my blood boil. This is unnecessary. If you stand by your work, stand by your work. Guess who's standing by this work? No one! Nobody! The memo remains unsigned. No one has taken a question on it. No one has defended it. The memo, which is sitting right here on the DOJ website, you can see it with your own 2 eyeballs. Scroll down to the bottom, please. Well, would you look at that? It's unsigned. Incredible. We have news on the Biden Autopen. Turns out the Autopen wasn't working today. Nobody felt like signing this. What a strange way to try and end this saga. If everybody believes this, why doesn't anybody defend it? Has one person from the federal government said, it's me, I wrote it, I stand by the work, I'm going to go take the questions now? That's how it works, man. Stand and deliver. Like, have a set of ball, like, sack up, get some balls in your shorts, and walk out there and answer for this. Answer real questions for this. Make this the subject of the conversation. Not a one-off here and there. Not something that can be shut down. Not something like inside of a very controlled little environment. Like, let people go and ask questions. This is the opposite of transparency. And it's having a fallout. It didn't have to be a scandal. It didn't. I'm just going to do a thought experiment. Let's say Epstein's an Intel agent. He's an Intel asset, and sources and methods, they got to protect it. And they have to come to this conclusion. Okay, fine. I don't like that answer. That's the wrong answer. But let's say you have to. Then you damn well better get out in front of it and explain that to people. You can straight up explain it. I've watched so many congressional hearings, it makes my brain snap. And the number of times that somebody from our intel services say, we got to protect that, it's sources and methods, take from that what you will. That's an acceptable, meaning it's at the very least a true answer. You know what I mean? Like, I'd rather have the true answer than the insulting answer, which is shut up. Don't ask questions. You know, so what happens when you're trying to do this like 5-dimensional chess jujitsu here is you end up with stories that don't make any sense, right? So here's a good example. Here's the writing of Virginia Roberts, who was the most famous sex trafficking victim of Jeffrey Epstein. I'm reading to you directly from her private diary. I used to be watched by Epstein's hidden cameras, which I've seen myself. The FBI have the archive footage showing me being abused by older men. It was used as blackmail, but also... Interesting. So that's what the first person account says of Jeffrey Epstein. That's what the first person experience of one of the trafficking victims says. By the way, this is the individual, and the only individual, as far as I know, that has been paid out tens of millions of pounds from the British royal family based on the amount of demonstrable evidence that Prince Andrew abused her, including photographic evidence. That's strange. Prince Andrew got his title stripped and is now anathema. Had the black spot in the royal family. How bad do you got to be to get that to happen inside the royal family, which is a very effed up family? His own friends say that Prince Andrew was, and I quote, effing children. So his buddies are saying that. Like his closest confidants are saying that on camera. Pam Bondi goes and says that the Epstein list is on her desk. Between Alina Habba, Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, like Bongino, the old clips, they live in infamy. Some of them were broadcast live on our show. But every single one of them saying that there is a demonstrable amount of horrible evidence here. Pam Bondi, the first time she was ever asked about Epstein was me at CPAC, like a day after she was confirmed. We were very proud. We're very proud of this. We obviously wanted to give them a ton of runway. We knew it was going to be complicated. But in the most polite way, I'm like, give us the Epstein list now. She said, it's on my desk. That's what she said. It made huge news. And then they consistently said that until they didn't. Then what happened next? There is no list. So this thing we've been telling you about suddenly disappears. There is no list, and Jeffrey Epstein had no clients and didn't do any sex trafficking, even though we've charged him and Ghislaine Maxwell with sex trafficking. Even though Jeffrey Epstein was already found guilty in court for sex trafficking, and Ghislaine Maxwell is doing 20 years in Club Fed for sex trafficking. It's like an insane thing to say. The Epstein files don't exist, they didn't tell us, after telling us they exist. And then this weekend, President Trump posted a Truth Social that's too long to read to you here. We've done plenty of coverage of it over the weekend. Here it is. Please go read it for yourself. I cannot encourage you enough. But the essence of this is President Trump saying, no, there is actually an Epstein list. Yes, it's all real. But it was created by Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton. Say what now? Well, then the story's changed again. That seems like wildly insane, meaning like, well, if they created, like Comey and Brennan are currently being prosecuted for creating a fake dossier and then going after Trump with it. Can we prosecute them again for creating a fake Epstein list? That might be convenient. Why not release it if it's all fake? If it's not real, then let's have it. Let it rip. The stories are so inconsistent that they beg more questions, and then with a former prime minister of Israel spouting off at Tucker, it doesn't give any. It gives the illusion or the reality that there's so much more here. The lady doth protest too much. The problem is the fallout. Bongino threatened, after our show on Friday, Bongino quite dramatically threatened to leave the FBI. Just one or two very quick and short and very important clips from this past weekend. Here's Megyn Kelly on Dan Bongino.
Prefer Bongino or Bond?
Yeah. Please. I mean, let's let her rip. Go.
He's not
Who
saying...
would you guys prefer, Bongino or Bonnie? Okay, 7,000 to 0.
They want Dan. Of course, Dan. You know why? Because Dan understands MAGA. Dan's part of the MAGA movement. Dan's been an important piece of it and a mouthpiece for like really important ideas and an advocate and a fierce warrior. He's been in the trenches. I mean, with all due respect to Pam Bondi, she's been in Florida. She represented the president. It's nice. But do you think she really gets MAGA? I don't think so. She wouldn't have behaved this way if she did. And now it's a time for choosing. It's a time for choosing.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not trying to rage click here. We're huge fans of Bongino. I consider him a mentor. He's been very helpful to me in my career. I'm a massive fan of Dan. I don't want Dan to leave the administration. I'm very upset about it. The assumption when President Trump, tripled down on Pam Bondi was that Dan was gone. And according to reporting from sources that we know very close to Dan, I'll just say that, the closest possible sources, Dan had left on Wednesday. And in fact, it wasn't on Friday that he walked out. On Wednesday, Dan said, I'm done. That was last week. According to President Trump, he's spoken with Dan. And it looks like President Trump is trying to steady the ship here. Here's what President Trump said about Bongino yesterday.
Oh, I think so. I did. I spoke to him today. Dan Bongino, very good guy. I've known him a long time. I've done his show many, many times, and he sounded terrific, actually. No, I think he's in good shape.
You have to put this dog down. You got to put the dog down. Here's an easy way to do it, ladies and gentlemen. We're just going to go really quickly through here. Can't wait to talk to Roger Stone about this. Ladies and gentlemen, Ghislaine Maxwell is ready to testify. The way to put the dog down is take her out of her cell, put her in front of the American people, and say, yo, what was this exactly? Since you were there and all the firsthand witnesses seem to be dying of mysterious circumstances, including but not limited to Virginia Roberts, who was just killed before this. Why do I say killed? She's the premier witness to all of Epstein's crimes. She was hit by a bus in the middle of the Australian outback, winds up in the hospital, posts that she's about to die, and then days later, she commits suicide. Come on, man. Dude, like, quit insulting us, right? Like, the lack of creativity, quite frankly, is depressing. Anyway, they're running out of like firsthand witnesses. And they're without giving us any kind of hard evidence and telling us to shut up and move along, what happens is then the conversation spirals and becomes subterranean. And it becomes darker. And people like assume the absolute worst. Scott Adams was up saying, like, whatever this is that the Trump administration is doing, Scott Adams, legend, whatever this is the Trump administration is doing, it's causing people's worst instincts about what Epstein was to be confirmed. So that's what this is leading to. People thought Jeffrey Epstein was dark. Now they think it's even darker and worse, right? It's having the opposite effect. Let Ghislaine speak. That's what I say. Let her speak. Ghislaine Maxwell is saying she's ready to testify before Congress about what was actually happening. She still says that she's innocent. Well, maybe this would be a way to, like, tell her story. Nobody's ever heard her story. She's rarely, if ever, been on video. Obviously, we have some videos of her. Ladies and gentlemen, this is an easy way. An easy way to, like, to get to the bottom of this is, like, let's bring in the firsthand witnesses, right? Let them speak. What an easy way to show us that you are ready to give us hard evidence by letting the people who observed everything that was going on speak. Here's Ghislaine Maxwell explaining what she thinks about Jeffrey Epstein's suicide in prison.
No, he didn't. I don't believe he did. I believe that he was murdered. Well, I was shocked. And I wondered how it had happened. Because as far as I was concerned, I was sure he was going to appeal. And I was sure that he was covered under the non-prosecution agreement.
Yeah.
But I wasn't in the indictment. So I wasn't mentioned. I wasn't even one of the co-conspirators.
So she says he's murdered from federal prison. Of course, she's in prison there. Why will we potentially not see this happen in Congress? Our dear friend Tim Burchett very quickly summarizes for us here why you will not see Ghislaine Maxwell testify before Congress.
And too many of my colleagues, I'm afraid, are compromised in this area for whatever reason. Somebody's whispered in their ear, said, hey, you don't want something to come out on something else. You better keep your mouth shut on this. And that's exactly what they've done. And it continues to go, whether it's the honeypot that the Russians used to use or something worse. I don't know. But it's clearly, you see that up and down the line. You see good conservatives vote for liberal policies.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, somebody who would absolutely know about this is a man who has been operationally running so much of the energy and ops inside of the Republican Party, including but not limited to one of President Trump's closest personal friends and strongest political allies, Roger Stone, who joins the program live right now. Roger, welcome back. Always an honor to have you.
Benny, I'm delighted to be with you.
One of these days, Roger, I'm going to start taking fashion advice from you. I promise. I promise you that. I know it's been years in the making, but I'm going to start. You start being respectable, like Roger.
Yesterday, I had the honor of speaking, of course, as you did, to the Turning Point USA conference in Tampa. And I was the very last speaker, essentially. And therefore, I went over my time. And the engineers are going crazy, screaming, "Oh, my God, he's pulling a Benny Johnson," which I kind of loved, if you want to.
I'll take it, Rob. That's right. And in the long arc of history, someday I will be as dapper of a dresser as Roger, and then Roger, you can be as long-winded as me. Roger, I'm going to shut up. So to that point, thank you. I'm going to shut up and just let you take the floor here. What is your take? And we have a great post from you here on X that I'd love to put up, and maybe just directionally, you're saying that the president needs to direct Pam Bondi to unseal everything in the Epstein file. And that's the way out here. The floor is yours, Roger. How does this get fixed? How does this crisis get fixed?
First of all, I think it's important for some background. I'm the first major author in the United States to write extensively about Jeffrey Epstein. If you go to my book, The Clintons' War on Women, the longest chapter in the book, entitled Orgy Island, title I took from our friend Sean Hannity, It tells you who his clients are, not all of them, but some of the most prominent ones. I had the flight logs for the Lolita Express. I get granular on the relationship between the Clintons and Jeffrey Epstein. I think it's important to understand Donald Trump cut Jeffrey Epstein off prior to Epstein being exposed and convicted as a sex criminal in Florida. But Bill and Hillary Clinton continued to take millions of dollars with him, continued to do business with him. The Terramar Foundation, which was a grooming pool, really, run by Ghislaine Maxwell, was completely funded by the Clinton Global Initiative. This is all in my book. So, of course, I favor full disclosure regarding Epstein. The simplest and easiest way to do this, in my opinion, since it is the Trump administration that charged him with 2 counts. One, they account for child sex trafficking, and secondly, account for conspiring to engage in child sex trafficking. The president should ask the attorney general, should direct the attorney general to tell the U.S. attorney in the Southern District of New York to move immediately in court to release all of that grand jury testimony that as well as the grand jury testimony for Ghislaine Maxwell, so we can see the facts. They cannot charge you with committing child sex trafficking without telling people to whom you trafficked the children. This is the fastest, easiest way to do this. I think it should be done tomorrow. Now, as far as Ghislaine Maxwell testifying for Congress, I think this would be great. I think she should testify. I can tell you this. Bill and Hillary Clinton are going to be very, very embarrassed. Former Democrat Governor Bill Richardson's no longer with us, or he would be embarrassed. Former Senate Majority Leader George Mitchell of Maine was on the island 14 times. Don't think he was going for the weather, Benny. I think he was going to be very embarrassed. The former Prime Minister of Israel, Ehud Barak, visiting the island multiple times. My book names names. You can go to EpsteinTruthBook.com, EpsteinTruthBook.com, and order it. It's all there. I've been talking about this since 2015.
Roger, one of the reasons why it's so important to have you, you're like a truth index for American political history, and you're not scared to talk about situations and episodes like this one, which I can't figure out. Why is Ghislaine Maxwell in the seat of honor at the Clinton wedding? The only one. Bill Clinton has a sole daughter. Why is she sitting there leering at this wedding? Please unpack this relationship.
Well, she was, of course, Epstein's pimp. She was in charge of trolling the bus stations and the train stations, looking for, children who had no parents or who were estranged from their parents. They're the easiest children to kidnap and traffic. She was making all the arrangements for him. I think she knew his business inside and out. She, again, by the Biden administration, she was charged with conspiracy to engage in child sex trafficking, but yet again, in her case, no other conspirators are identified. The U.S. attorney who handled the Epstein case and the Maxwell case and the P. Diddy case, another cover-up, all the same people. This is Damian Williams, the Democrat U.S. attorney in the Southern District of New York, and Maureen Comey, who just happens to be the daughter of one of the great orchestrators of the Russian collusion hoax, who himself, I suspect, will be facing charges very shortly. James Comey, the former FBI director. So I would really love to see Maxwell testify. I think we would learn a lot. But what we learn is going to exonerate President Trump. I'm sick of this claim. Oh, Trump is in the files. I've seen the files. Yes, it's absolutely true. On one occasion, Donald Trump and his wife, Marla Maples, and his daughter, Tiffany, flew from New York City, actually Teterboro in New Jersey, to Palm Beach on a Friday and flew back on a Saturday. That proves what? We have the testimony, both written and in a 6-hour interview I did with Virginia Giuffre, who said that Trump was only in Epstein's home once, and that was for a public event, for a charity event, and he acted like a perfect gentleman. It was not Donald Trump who visited Jeffrey Epstein in New York. That was Steve Bannon. It was not Donald Trump who visited him in his Paris apartment. That was Steve Bannon. Steve has evidently done a documentary about him. I'd like to see that documentary. I don't know how one would justify having anything to do with someone who's already been convicted at that point in Florida for sex crimes. But, Steve should clear the air on this. He's got 15 hours of footage of him interviewing Epstein. Could be very revealing, might help shed light on who Epstein's clients were. Steve should release that audio and video immediately.
I could not agree more. I actually texted Steve about that and said, if there's ever a time to find out more, and where the American public are ravenous for further information, I mean, you'd be doing a huge public service for that. And I know Steve was asked about that this weekend and said that he's going to be releasing it. So we hope that happens. Something that was released, Roger, that I want to get your take on, since you are a subject matter expert here. There was some deposition material that was released approximately 1 year ago, 18 months ago, from some of the Epstein victims. And they were asked constantly about President Trump, and none of them even knew him or ever saw him. And this is available in the documents. Anybody can go see him. But they were also asked about Bill Clinton, and many of them had stories about Bill, including one that says Bill Clinton liked him young, directly from Jeffrey Epstein. Some of the other victims say that they witnessed personally Bill Clinton on the island, that they witnessed personally Bill Clinton leering and lurking about the island in mysterious rooms. These are the direct witness testimonies. These documents are public, Roger. I mean, nobody has to, you don't have, there's no illusion here. They're in black and white, and they're from the court. Why has Bill Clinton never been brought in by federal investigators to answer questions about this?
No, you make a very good point. Virginia Giuffre, who was Virginia Roberts at that time, and I agree with you. I interviewed her for 6 hours for my book, The Clintons' War on Women. I read every word of her lawsuit and her sworn testimony. She most definitely did not kill herself, but she says very specifically that Bill Clinton was talking to these two 16-year-olds who had been flown in especially for his entertainment, when she was told she had to leave the public event to have sex with somebody who Epstein was compelling her to have sex with. She also writes in her notes that it was always being filmed. So, yeah, I think Bill Clinton, given his track record, what do you think he was doing there? And while he was on the plane multiple times, he's on the island multiple times. He even borrows Epstein's jet to fly to Asia to pick up a multi-million-dollar check for the Clinton Global Initiative from a guy who is a publicly known pedophile. It's all in my book, The Clintons' War on Women.
Roger, we have the chapter or the entry from Virginia Roberts here in her diary, where she says, yes, I was often ordered to go, to let older men abuse me, and the FBI has those tapes. Epstein filmed these engagements, and Epstein has the footage. I've seen it in the control room. I've seen Epstein's footage. And these are not things that anybody questions, Roger. Everybody knows that this is the case. We've seen the hard drives. We've heard the FBI's own testimony about the hidden camera system inside of all of his mansions. So, it's Virginia, given the fact that you knew Virginia Roberts and we didn't, is she telling the truth here? And then why would the federal government say the opposite?
She's definitely telling the truth because she's not the only one saying it. Many of Epstein's victims settled with him to avoid questions, and took millions of dollars, but a handful of them did not read all those transcripts. So others make this same claim. I think it's important to recognize that in this particular case, I would like this all to come out because I see the left using this as a way to divide us. Right. I see it as a way to recycle the false claim that the Trump administration is not disclosing this material because Donald Trump did something wrong, which is absolutely untrue. And I prove in my book. So I think the sooner we can get all the facts here, the better. There is no question in my mind that Virginia Giuffre was murdered. And then there is the other question, which is...
Please expand on that. I hate to interrupt, but can you please unpack that?
Well,
what is it that gives you such certitude?
Her father, who I also interviewed, said that there was no... she was a very determined, spiritual woman who believed deeply in God. She bore these horrific scales. She was offered $31 million to shut up and go away by Epstein, and then later Epstein's estate, and she refused. So I think she was determined to get the truth out here. So I think that is an important part of it.
So with your experience with Virginia Roberts and with your experience doing such a deep dive on this, Roger, can you answer the real question, which was Jeffrey Epstein in the sex trafficking business? He was found guilty of that. Ghislaine Maxwell found guilty of that. Those aren't questions, actually. And yes. It's insane for the DOJ to come out and say, no, actually, that didn't happen. They were already found guilty. We have already moved past that. What was the operation here, Roger, given your experience in researching it? What was the actual operation? That seems to be the question. And where the hell did the money come from, Roger?
I think there's a couple of answers. First of all, I believe, based on my own research, that Epstein was, in fact, working for the CIA, among other intelligence services. When Alexander Acosta, the U.S. attorney in Miami, who reviewed the state charges against Epstein, which were a slap on the wrist, the Palm Beach police chief gave the state's attorney, after a 6-month undercover investigation, the evidence to charge Epstein with 33 separate counts of child sex trafficking, identifying 33 girls. He also gave him, the state's attorney, a comprehensive case for statutory rape. The state's attorney turned around after Epstein hired Alan Dershowitz and Leon Black and Gerald Lefcourt, three of the most prominent criminal defense attorneys in the country. He got that negotiated down to 1 count of solicitation. That would be like a guy walking into a bar and soliciting a prostitute. It's a minor crime. So the police chief went to Alexander Acosta, the U.S. attorney, the federal attorney with jurisdiction over all South Florida, and said, something's not right here. The prosecutor either got paid off or he was threatened. By the way, immediately after Epstein's conviction, the prosecutor quit his job, opened a law firm, and he was immediately retained by a number of Jeffrey Epstein's associates in their criminal defenses. So I think we know what happened there. Instead of opening the case and charging Epstein with the more sweeping crimes that the Trump administration charged him with, he sealed the case. He rubber stamped the state charges and he sealed the case. Now, a lawyer that I know, a lawyer, Benny, whose name you would recognize, a lawyer who's been in Washington for a long time, is very respected in Republican circles, was involved with Acosta's preparations for his confirmation as Secretary of Labor in the Trump administration. And he tells me that when in their practice session for the confirmations, he said, what are you going to say if a senator asks you about your disposition of the Epstein case and why you didn't pursue greater charges against him? And he said, it's very simple. I'm just going to tell the truth. I was contacted by the CIA. I was told that he worked for them and that I was to seal the case. Now, I write that in my book. I noticed last week that Mr. Acosta won't answer questions when he's asked whether he knows that Epstein was an intelligence agent, at least for the CIA. We also know, of course, that Ghislaine Maxwell is the daughter of Robert Maxwell, one of the most notorious Mossad agents, a press baron, one of the most notorious Mossad agents in history. kind of a shady guy. You can read all about it. And Steve Hoffenberg, who is no longer with us, deceased, but who was one of Epstein's earliest bosses on Wall Street and in business, insisted that his partner Epstein was doing work for Israel. I believe, Benny, that he was kind of an equal opportunity blackmailer. In other words, I think he worked for Israel. I think he worked for the United States. I think he gun running there. I think he worked for many, many people. And those many people are not interested in having their dirty laundry put out. Imagine the pressure right now from the British royal family, because we know of Prince Andrew's multiple times on the island. And we know from Virginia Giuffre's lawsuit that she was forced to have sex with him.
You know, Roger, it's wild because what you're saying here seems to, there's like a tinge of speculation to it. Yet here it is in black and white in an article from 25 years ago. Jeffrey Epstein bragged about being a CIA agent. There's really no speculation here, Roger, any longer. It's kind of all out in the open. The only reason that anybody cares about it is it seems like there is a very poor act of covering up right now from the Trump Department of Justice. And that, given your extreme connection to so many operators and players, my question to you is why? Why come out with that memo? Which on its face, first off, Roger, you're obviously a master of media and a master of like handling crises, as you've done it for 40, 50 years in the Republican Party. Why do it this way? It seems insane. Everything from leaking it to left-wing Axios to not signing the memo. To banging on and on about the Epstein client list and the horrible crimes, and then just like doing a 180. It all seems so bewildering to me, and you probably know so much more than I do, Roger. So please.
Benny, this tactic is a little familiar to me. When BuzzFeed sued the Justice Department to get Robert Mueller's entire unredacted report released, because all the sections about me were redacted, the Justice Department released it in a press release at midnight on Election Day of 2020, the busiest media day of the year, the day that you don't want anything to be seen. And in that report, he was forced to admit that he found no evidence against me regarding Russian collusion, WikiLeaks collaboration. He even went so far as to say, we looked at everything, it's fine. We couldn't find any other crime. It's all there in black and white. The New York Times never covered that, neither did the Washington Post, the Wall Street Journal, the Associated Press, but it's on page 178 of Mueller's report. The judge had it during trial, and she withheld from my defense attorney. So I've seen this tactic of putting stuff out late at night on a holiday weekend in the hope that it'll get little notice. In this case, the case is so, shall we say, incendiary that it was always going to get notice. Look, I'm going to give Pam Bondi the benefit of the doubt in the sense that I don't think she knew much about this case to begin with. Unfortunately for her, she didn't read my book. If she had, she would have known a lot more. I think that the things that she saw initially, which she found shocking, were things that you, Benny, and I, and others who've been following the case already knew about, but that she didn't know about because she hadn't followed the case. But as far as the DVDs and the hard drives that were removed from his place in New York, his place on the island, the ranch in New Mexico, as well as his Paris apartment, I believe DVDs and hard drives were released from all four. I have little doubt whatsoever that they no longer exist. I think they were destroyed by Christopher Wray almost immediately after they were obtained. So when Kash Patel tells us we don't have that material, we can't look at the videos to identify the adults in them, obviously protecting the identities of the victims. I've never thought there was a list per se. I thought a list could be compiled simply by looking at the videos. And perhaps also there could be revealing information in Epstein's emails or his text messages. So the phone book is a perfect example. I had the little black book when I wrote my book on the Clintons. But not everyone in the little black book was involved in sex trafficking. I mean, the guy who did his lawn is in there. The plumber is in there. Donald Trump is in there. There are a number of people who I think he knew, but that doesn't mean that they were guilty of pedophilia. So I've never thought there was a client list per se, but I did think that the government could compile a client list through the evidence that is available.
Well, from your mouth to God's ears, Roger, we really hope that the pressure that is being applied on this, because it's out of care and concern for the administration and so many of our friends that are doing incredible work, and we don't want to see that work tainted by what many perceive as a cover-up or as not a full disclosure or transparency. One final very quick thing, Roger, since you brought up the Mueller report. Would you like to see James Comey raided at 4 a.m. with the Fox News cameras rolling outside of his house?
Newsmax would be okay with me. But no, the point, I guess, here is very simple. I think that is going to happen. The CIA's report last week was helpful, but it was a shallow dive into Russian collusion. The House Intelligence Committee, under the leadership of Congressman Rick Crawford, has been working closely with Tulsi Gabbard. There is much, much, much more in terms of classified documents regarding the origins and operations of the Russian collusion hoax. So yes, I think John Brennan, the admitted communist who was the head of the CIA, and who really is the guy who forced the false Steele dossier into the president's intelligence community briefing so it could then be weaponized against Trump. James Comey, who lied multiple times to Congress, Susan Rice, Andrew McCabe, Ron the Rat Rosenstein. Every one of these people, I think, not only should be indicted, I actually think they're going to be indicted. FBI, you now have an FBI investigation into Comey and Brennan. Tulsi Gabbard is working very hard with Chairman Crawford to get all of this material declassified and released to the public. And at that point, I think the Attorney General will have no choice. That said, let's recognize that charges brought in the District of Columbia will be very hard to win convictions. You remember when John Durham conducted his 5-year investigation, slowly taking 5 years to make sure the statute of limitations against Hillary and Podesta and Rice and Comey and Brennan and all of the other perps had expired. The good news is there's no expiration on the crime of treason. He chose to charge a lawyer at the very, very bottom of this totem pole, a guy named Sussman, a minor actor in the whole drama. Charging Sussman is like charging the guy who's driving the getaway car for double parking while you let the bank robbers get away. The problem is virtually every judge in D.C. is epically biased, as the judge in my case was, who now we now know withheld that Mueller report from my defense attorneys, even though we asked for it. You will not get a fair jury. You won't get a balanced and fair jury. You'll get a politicized jury because of the jury pool. And the biggest problem at our Justice Department is, while there may be good people at the top, everybody below them, not just in Washington, but in every federal district in the country, are Biden holdovers who are working to undermine the new U.S. attorneys. This is happening particularly in the southern and eastern districts of New York, but it's happening across the country. It amazes me, one more thing which I cannot resist. A federal court rules that we no longer have to put fluoride in our water. This is a huge victory for those who believe in health and want to make America healthy again. But the Trump administration's Justice Department is going to appeal that ruling. That is insanity.
Roger, that is something that is actually quite near and dear to my heart. It's also near and dear to the heart of our next guest, Laura Trump, who cares so very much about health. I want to have you back. We are up against a hard out here, Roger, so I appreciate your time on this and your insight. We'll have you rebooked and we can talk about fluoride. I'd be happy to do it. Everybody needs to follow Roger Stone. He's also right about this, by the way. There's new leaks or new information coming out of the DOJ that they're setting the precedent for some vast, sweeping charges for Russiagate and for some of the other greater cover-ups. And we have so much to cover on that. Roger Stone, you can follow him. He has nearly 1 million subscribers on X. He has an incredible show, and he's one of the wisest men around. Thank you, Roger.
The key thing here, Benny, is we cannot let this deter us from Donald Trump's mission.
Correct.
He is closing our borders. He's bringing us economic prosperity. He's protecting the country. He's got men out of women's sports. We cannot let this divide us and get the greatest president in my lifetime distracted from his successful mission.
Here's where you can find Roger's latest book, and it's The Stone Zone. This is Clinton's War on Women is one that you can pick up if you want to see what's really happening here with Epstein. So Godspeed, Roger. Thank you.
Thank you, Benny.
Ladies and gentlemen, Laura Trump joining the show live right now. Let's go. Laura, thank you so much for being on the program. What an exciting time to be alive. Yesterday was the 1-year anniversary of all of us watching your father-in-law get saved, a miracle from God, and you had an exclusive interview with your father on your show, My View, on Fox News. And so I wanted to just give you the floor on that and take a moment to sort of, absorb that somber moment. And what was the feelings in that interview? I know we have a couple clips.
Yeah, it was sort of amazing that it was already a year, Benny. I think for some of us, it feels like it was yesterday. For some of us, it feels like it was almost 10 years ago now. There's so much that's happened. But certainly for our family, it's a moment we'll never forget. And I think it's one of those moments for probably most Americans where we'll look back, decades from now and say, I remember where I was when this happened. It truly was a miracle. I'm glad you used that word. A miracle that Donald Trump is still alive today. He never put that chart up until like the last half of his rally. He put it up within the first 5 minutes of his rally and happened to look at the exact right time, as we've all seen over and over again, so that the bullet only grazed his ear and nothing worse, thank God. And he believes that after that, he was left here on earth and he was spared to make sure that we got this country back on track to save America. He says that time and time again. And he does believe it was a miracle. And so, whenever I got this show on Fox and I told my father-in-law about it, he said, if you want me on your first episode, your ratings will go through the roof. And I said, you know what? I actually think that I'm going to save it. And I don't know exactly the right time, but let me get my feet under me and I'll let you know. And as we approached this anniversary, I thought there's no better time to have him come on my show and to sit down with him as a family member, as the mother to 2 of his grandchildren, than that anniversary. And to be honest with you, whenever I was about to ask him the questions about it, I felt a little bit emotional because I don't think any of us in our family could feel any other way. It was a really tough thing to watch and a tough time for all of us to go through. But it's his response. I always really appreciate when it comes to the United States Secret Service. There's a lot that was said about them in the wake of that. And I certainly think the leadership at that time, fair game. There were requests made that were denied supposedly by the top leadership at the Secret Service, requests for more personnel, requests for a heavier detail for him. And, you look at some of the missteps. I do not believe we will ever see that happen again. There is a new Secret Service director, Sean Curran. I've personally been out there to the Secret Service Training Center. I've seen the changes that they've already made, and there's so much more to come. So he always has great, kind words to say about the Secret Service. And I will say every individual who you saw put their life on the line in that moment on July 13th of 2024 on that stage in Butler, Pennsylvania, they did their job, Benny. They jumped on stage. They did exactly what they were supposed to do, and they were willing to risk their life to save his. So our entire family is grateful to them. I do think as it relates to the overall scope of things, there are a lot of Americans that still have questions, but the president told me himself he is satisfied with the briefing and the download that he's received from the DOJ and from the FBI on it.
Maybe you can help us square this circle, because yesterday the New York Post ran with this story that says the Secret Service officials were aware of a threat to your father's life 10 days before this rally, and yet engaged in these systemic failures that we witnessed at the rally. Multiple agents were put on suspensions over those failures. I think there's, obviously, Cheadle lost her job, Rowe lost his job. But there are many people asking the question, why the hell did this happen? Obviously, the the shadow of this, Laura, is that some forces inside of our federal government really wanted your father-in-law to take a bullet that day, and on purpose made sure that the B, D, and C teams were there, that they weren't monitoring a rooftop. The videos from that day is just chaotic. It makes us angry as MAGA supporters and as supporters of your father-in-law that happened. Every American should be rightfully frustrated by it. Did you get into this at all? And what is your take on that?
Well, it's funny because if you go back to that time, you have to kind of look at what was going on with Donald Trump, right? He had just, come to the end of this trial in downtown Manhattan, the Alvin Bragg trial, another one of these witch hunt cases that we all knew was bogus from the beginning. And the goal, as we all acknowledged at the time, and I think now in retrospect is very clear, was to prevent him from ever becoming president of the United States. Whether you're talking about Alvin Bragg, whether you're talking about Fannie Willis, whether you're talking about Letitia James, they all had the same goal, which was to prevent Donald Trump from becoming president again. You couple that with just the kind of hatred that was thrown his way overall during that time period. And I think to a lot of us in our family, we looked around in those moments and we said, well, what else could they possibly do to this man? How could they possibly go against him to prevent him from becoming president? And to a lot of us, the only other outcome was something like this happening. And it was always a fear, I think, for all of us in our family and to a lot of people who were close to my father-in-law, specifically at that time. So in the context of that, yes, I think in the moments following all of this happening, there were a lot of us who said, well, maybe this was all part of a bigger plan. Now, obviously, we don't have the full information, and I hope we can all receive that information. I hope for Core's family, we can receive that information because this is a man who lost his life because of the failures of that day. But yeah, it does make you question, why did this happen? Why, if there was an obvious threat, if there was an imminent threat, wasn't there more done? Why, if there were, requests multiple times, almost a dozen times, his campaign team and detail leader requested more personnel for him and a bigger footprint for this nominee for president, the Republican nominee for president of the United States. Why wasn't there more given to him? So I don't have the answer to that question, obviously, but it does still go through a lot of our minds. And I will tell you, in the wake of that happening, that's kind of how it felt to our whole family. Like, oh my God, they've done everything possible to Donald Trump to stop him from becoming president. This is the only other thing that could possibly happen to prevent it from ultimately becoming true.
Yeah, and again, this is the widest viewed miracle in history. I think God was doing real work here, but that's not what we should have to depend upon. Right. We shouldn't have to depend upon a missed bullet in 3 centimeters. There should be quite a bit more layers of protection, and these failures must never happen again. In the same week, we find out, according to the disclosures from Congress, that Lee Harvey Oswald was effectively just a CIA asset, and that they had multiple operations involving Lee Harvey Oswald in a huge scandal that deserved, I think, a lot more attention. And so it just colors all of this it puts quite a cloud over it, Laura.
Yeah, well, and you look, Benny, at all of the things that have happened prior to that election cycle, right? Look at what they did. Donald Trump, he said consistently, Obama spied on my campaign. Well, we found out afterward, Obama did spy on his campaign. You look at the 51 former CIA intelligence agents who signed the document saying the Hunter Biden laptop was Russian disinformation. You look at the way that, you have the FBI agents, Strzok and Page, who were going actively against Donald Trump to prevent him from becoming president while they were working for the federal government. You look at all of this stuff and you say to yourself, well, maybe it's not so far-fetched that there was some greater plot, there was some greater goal to prevent, Donald Trump from getting back in that White House. I think that we all often say that the difference between a conspiracy theory and the truth is something like 6 months. Now, in this case, maybe it'll be a little over a year, but it does feel very strange to look at all that's happened to this one man, all that was happening in this time frame to this one man, and not say, well, is it some sort of a coincidence that some guy who came out of nowhere, who no one had heard of, some, this Crooks individual, never really had a background. We don't know much about him, and we still don't know much about him because his body was burned. very shortly after that whole situation. So
Yeah.
leaves a lot of questions, unfortunately.
Yes, your husband said famously that he was incinerated faster than a household pet who died, and this has still got to cause extreme consternation because we know absolutely nothing. We've never seen any of the. I mean, listen, every person has cell phone records, every person has email records. We've seen nothing. Have you, given the fact that you are a direct member of the family, has anyone briefed you on like who Matthew Thomas Crooks was, what his motivations were, who he was communicating with that day? Because we see photos taken by Secret Service of him on the phone. He's calling someone, Laura. Do we know who he called?
I do not have any of that information. And I think it's interesting,
Here's the photo, by the way.
Knowing my father-in-law for as long as I have, 17 years now or so, the way he operates, as far as I understand him, is that whenever there's a situation like this that is very challenging to go through, that's obviously traumatic, I think he kind of boxes it up and puts it away, and he doesn't want to think about it. And you've kind of seen him, Benny, in a lot of these interviews where people are asking him specifically about July 13th from last year. He says, I try not to think about it. He said in the interview with me that, you are putting your life at risk if you're a bull rider. 1/10 of 1% of bull riders are killed. 1% of 1% of race car drivers are killed. 5% of presidents are killed. And so he knows the risks, and he knows that this was a life-altering moment, a moment where things could have taken a turn for the worse. But I think he kind of boxes it up and puts it away. And that's how he's able to focus on taking this country back and making sure that we're going in the right direction and fixing all the wrongs that happened over the past 4 years, etc. He can't focus on this. And so he told me he was satisfied with the information that he received. But in a lot of ways, I almost think he doesn't even want to talk about it. Maybe he doesn't want to know more about it because it's a way that he personally processes things and deals with things. So no, none of us in the family have been briefed on it. I don't know. I don't have any more information on, obviously, the individual who tried to assassinate him. There is one person who is still alive who was attempting to kill him. And I think we're going to see that man in court in September, I believe, down in Florida. So maybe we can get some info from that guy. Unfortunately, Crooks, we're not going to get a whole lot out of him anymore.
What did you say that the timeline between conspiracy theory to established fact is 6 months? Okay, good. That's true for you. You had the most famous clip with Jake Tapper where you said, Joe Biden, he's got real problems up in the head. And, obviously that clip is now infamous, and Jake Tapper squealed and clutched his pearls. Now Jake Tapper's trying to make money off of the thing that you said was fact. And this morning, according to the New York Times, massive breaking story about Joe Biden and his Autopen, and how it is an absolute fact that you were right. What would it be, 5 years ago now, Laura?
Yeah, it was 2020.
That you were right. We have the clip right here. We'll just pop it up. But everyone's heard it before. Here's you saying this. Jake Tapper got so offended. And now, lo and behold, this morning, we find out that the entire administration was literally run by an Autopen. Your reaction here?
Yeah, well, I don't think this is a surprise, Benny, because we all looked at Joe Biden. In the clip that you're referencing, that was during the campaign when he was running for president, before he became president. And we were worried about him then. And throughout the course of his time as president, we all had questions. We all had concerns. We all saw him slipping, going up the Air Force One steps, falling off bikes, all these different things that were very concerning, not able to even really make coherent sentences in any sort of a press setting where everything was very set up. Everything was, he had very specific people he was supposed to call on. Very concerning to all of us. The funny part to me is the only actual signed pardon that he gave in those last sloth of pardons where he found 1,500 pardons that he, just kind of had to get him out, or someone did, was Hunter Biden's. He was the only one that Joe Biden actually signed. The Autopen was used for everyone else, and everything else used for executive orders, used for everything under the sun. And constitutionally, I don't know, some people would say, oh, well, verbally, if he said, okay, then that was acceptable. Do we believe that if we questioned Joe Biden on every single one of those pardons, he would be able to say whether or not he actually pardoned those individuals? I'll go back to Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House, back in, I believe, January, when he had a conversation with Joe Biden about, limiting or preventing our liquid natural gas exports. And he said, why did you sign this executive order, Mr. President? Why did you do that? It's going to hurt the United States of America. And Joe Biden said, I didn't sign that. And Speaker Johnson said, yes, you did. Your signature is on this document. Benny, he didn't know what he was signing at almost any turn. So to believe that he knew what was happening within the running of the day-to-day in our government is ridiculous. To believe he knew what was happening with all of these pardons is ridiculous. And I think it's very telling that the only one they actually took the time to get Joe Biden to sign in all of this was Hunter Biden's, because that's the one that really had to stick, not just for Hunter, but for the entire Biden family, because they're all implicated in something that's a lot bigger and a lot more damaging and dangerous to the United States should Hunter Biden ever kind of go in front of Congress, have to go into another court of law and be questioned about a lot of things that happened during the time his father was vice president, all the way up through his end of his presidential term. And I'll couple that with, we also saw Joe Biden's doctor plead the fifth every single question he was asked last week. So you tell me what's going on there. I think to most Americans, they look at that and they say, this guy had no idea what was going on. He certainly wasn't in control of the government. And I do think we need to get to the bottom of who was making all the decisions, because that's not how this country is supposed to run.
Yes. And this is what people voted for. This 77 million people voted for your father-in-law, obviously for this transparency, because we knew we were being lied to. We knew Joe Biden. We saw Joe Biden falling ass backwards down the stairs of Air Force One. We knew he wasn't running the country. We knew that they ran the Russia hoax. We knew that they ran the January 6th hoax. We knew that there was something else going on with the Trump assassination attempts. And the lies end up creating a real pressure cooker for people. And I think that might be part of the question with this Epstein saga, is that the pressure, we've been lied to for so long by people, decades of this, and it's been abuse, and people, much like a dog that's been, you lash out, right? You bite when somebody even puts their hand near you. I think people are just, they have such a high pressure incidence right now that they just want full transparency on just absolutely everything. You and your show have spoken with so many individuals throughout the administration. I think you've scored the only interview with Susie Wiles, for instance, which was very interesting. Hearing her take on Elon was fascinating. What would be your advice? Given this back and forth, we're just coming off of Turning Point here in Tampa. This was the topic of conversation. What would be your advice in order to take the temperature down on this issue from within the administration?
Well, I do think that there needs to be more transparency on this. And I think that will happen. I mean, look, I don't know what truly exists there, but I know that this is something that's important to the president as well. He does want transparency on all these fronts, that everything we're talking about, because it's frustrated him as well. He sat for 4 years like the rest of us did and saw lie after lie and saw our country just being sent down the wrong path. And it was really frightening and very upsetting to a lot of people to see. And I would actually say over the past 10 years, we've all kind of endured this. Prior to that, it was probably happening, Benny, but we just weren't as aware of it. It wasn't until Donald Trump came down that golden escalator that he just kind of blew the doors off of everything. And people started to wake up and realize, wait a minute, things are not as they have always been presented to us. And I do believe that you will see that. Now, as it relates to the president, I know that this is probably not his number one thing he's focused on. He's focused on a lot of other important things. We've got this big announcement with Russia going on, I think, as we're speaking right now at the White House. We have, a Middle East, we're trying to get peace over there. We're trying to make sure that Iran's nuclear arsenal is obviously completely decimated. We want to make sure everything is on the right track for this country. Fortunately, we've seen no border crossings in the last month. 0, by the way. I think that's incredible. No one's talking about that enough. 0 illegal border crossings in the month of June. Amazing how that's all gone. So I don't know that this was top of mind for him, but he hears all the noise and he hears all of the consternation out there. And I think he's going to want to set things right as well. So I believe that there will probably be more coming on this. And I believe anything that they are able to release that doesn't, damage any witnesses or anyone underage or anything like that, I believe they'll probably try to get out sooner rather than later because they hear it and they understand it. So hopefully we see that happen sooner than later. And I guess that would be my advice. But to everybody out there who's all worked up about it, there's no great plot to keep this information away that I'm aware of. I do just believe that maybe it's been slow rolled for reasons that hopefully we understand down the line. And I think we're probably going to get more transparency on it very soon.
It's obviously a delicate balance, and obviously something that perhaps a question that you may have to face, given that there are quite a few rumblings of you seeking potentially higher office. And these are questions of people who seek higher office. And, if you were in the Senate, right, presumably an intel committee, you'd get a vote on things like this. Perhaps you could give us a little bit of runway on what your thoughts are in the Senate. North Carolina Senate seat is going to be wide open for a North Carolina girl.
Yeah, well, it's funny because, Benny, I feel like we had just talked about the Florida Senate seat that needed to be filled for Marco Rubio here together on your show. And so obviously it's something that I've thought about a lot, and it's something that in the right timing I'd like to do. Now, whether that timing is right now or not, I'm not totally sure. It's a bigger conversation for my family because, as you know, it's not just about one person. Whenever you do anything, it involves your whole family. I have 2 kids, 3 dogs, a husband. A lot to consider in all of this, but nothing would be a greater honor than to be able to serve the people of my home state of North Carolina, to be able to be a change maker. And obviously I've seen that directly from my father-in-law, to see the way one person can impact so many and can encourage so many and influence so many. So it's something that I certainly would like to do. I got to figure out whether this is the time or whether it'll be in the future, but I'm looking into it. It's kind of all fresh and new. We just sort of learned about this a little over a week ago. But I'm thinking about it. So stay tuned. We'll see what happens.
Okay, just one really quickly off the dome. You've interviewed, I think, dozens of high-ranking members of the administration. What is the most shocking moment on your show on Fox News, My View with Laura Trump?
Well, one of my favorites was being able to do a competitive workout with our Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth. I did that 2 weeks ago, and I got to tell you, they didn't give me an easy workout, Benny. They made sure that I was working hard, and I think you can look at Secretary Hegseth and say the same thing. We were on opposite teams, and I was bound and determined to beat him. And I'm a little bit ashamed to say here right now, he beat me. And then I got a call from my father-in-law right after this episode, and he said, "Tell me the truth. Were these guys stronger than you?" And I said, "Yeah, they're 20-year-old guys who were, they're in the prime of their life. If they can't beat a mom of 2, I don't know what we got going on." I can say with 100% certainty, we've upped the standards in the United States military. This group of men at the Army who allowed me to work out with them, I'm incredibly grateful for it. And you guys just totally took me down. So thank you for the hard workout. I appreciate it.
Looks like you're keeping up. We have the footage playing right now.
Yeah, I tried to hold my own. Don't kid yourself. I'm not going to go down without a fight.
Yeah, I mean, you're not like Lizzo or Rosie O'Donnell here trying to do this. Yeah.
God, I hope not.
We've talked about your CrossFit regimen on the show before. Yeah. So if there was anyone probably in broadcast TV that could even try to stick with it, it'd be you. I think you did. I think you did I think you did great work.
Thank you very much.
All right. Well, potential future senator or Army Ranger. We don't know.
Who knows?
Laura Trump, the international woman of mystery. And we will keep you posted as to what happens next. Godspeed, Laura. Thank you so much. Here's Laura's social media. 2.1 million people follow her on X. You must be one of them. And then tune in to her show on Fox. It airs every week. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, my producers are telling me that not only do we have a Trump Live, but there is also another Trump Live. His name's Donald, and he's live inside of the Oval Office. Now, my request to the producers before we hit our next ad is let's go, is the Q&A still actively ongoing? If that is the case, then we need to go to the Q&A right away. So figure that out, guys, okay? Let's figure that out. If that's the case, then let's go there right away. Allio Capital. Allio Capital is who I trust for my financial future. They are an incredible investing platform that does the hard work for you. This is a platform that marks trends, global trends, everything from inflation numbers to unemployment numbers to wars to all of it, and then builds it in to an AI that is able to macro or micro manage your accounts based on your risk and adapts your portfolio in real time. It's been awesome. I've just done a little trial investment myself with Allio Capital. Dude, it worked great. What I'm saying here is that I don't have the time, okay, to sit there and nitpick all day. Some people are day traders, not me. I got to be locked in right here in the studio. My butt stays here 9 to 5 to 365. You probably have a real job as well. So ladies and gentlemen, download their app today in the App Store or Google. Text my name, Benny, to 511-511. That's ALLIO, capital. Text Benny to 511-511. Download the Allio app or text Benny to 511-511 today. Investing involves risk, including potential loss of principal. Past performance does not guarantee results. Consult with your financial professional before making an investment decision. See terms and conditions, alliocapital.com. Message and data rates apply. All right. Okay. So President Trump took he did a meeting inside of the Oval Office. We always like carrying these things live, but we had a Trump Live on our program, and so we were going to be polite, obviously, to that. I'm waiting for a producer to tell me, like, we're not going to replay the whole thing, but I'm waiting for a producer to tell me, like, or maybe just send in clips. Okay, tell me what was the newsworthiness of it. Again, ladies and gentlemen, oftentimes we will break from a guest. We'll go right to the president when the president's live. If there is any type of like top line news, let me know. Okay. So this is on the Ukraine. This is on NATO funding further Ukraine's weapons. All right. This is what I'm seeing. NATO weapons. Trump, when asked about NATO weapons being sent to Ukraine, a full complement. It's everything. It's all of them. President Trump saying that NATO and Europeans will be paying for all of this. That's, I think, obviously very important. And then talking about Putin, Trump saying that he speaks to Putin a lot. This is some of the top line. Just so you know, they're paying for everything, says President Trump. That seems to be the major emphasis here. Paying for everything. We are not paying any more. As I said, we have a problem. Is this the clip? Is this the clip that we have? This is very important. Okay. Here's the president, ladies and gentlemen, talking again with the NATO secretary inside of the White House just moments ago. Here we go. Another clip. Thank you.
The reasons that you're here today is to hear that we are very unhappy, I am, with Russia. But we'll discuss that maybe a different day. But we're very, very unhappy with them, and we're going to be doing very severe tariffs if we don't have a deal in 50 days. Tariffs at about 100%. You'd call them secondary tariffs. You know what that means. But today we're going to talk about something else. And as you know, we've spent $350 billion approximately on this war with Russia and Ukraine. And would like to see it end. It wasn't my war, it was Biden's war. It's not my war, I'm trying to get you out of it. And we want to see it end. And I'm disappointed in President Putin because I thought we would have had a deal 2 months ago, but it doesn't seem to get there. So based on that, we're going to be doing secondary tariffs if we don't have a deal in 50 days. It's very simple. And they'll be at 100%. And that's the way it is. That can be more simple. It's just the way it is. I hope we don't have to do it.
Ladies and gentlemen, President Trump was asked on the Autopen scandal. This is an important clip. It's being loaded right now as a throw. The background for this clip is Biden said he had to use the Autopen because he simply granted too many pardons. Well, this is patently criminally illegal. The president has to sign the pardons himself. He has to know about the pardons. You're not allowed to just use a machine. And this is breaking from the New York Times. Let's go right here. The Biden Autopen scandal has now burst forth onto the scene. It is news once again. Biden said he had to use Autopen because he just gave too many pardons away. Former President Joe Biden told the New York Times that he granted his staff the use of the Autopen because he granted clemency to so many people. For the first time in an interview with the New York Times, Biden addressed the House Republicans and the Trump administration's investigation into the alleged use of the Autopen to sign various documents while in the White House. The former president told the outlet that he personally approved all the pardons and commutations at the end of his term, but had directed his staff to use the Autopen on clemency warrants because we were talking about a whole lot of people. Well, the whole lot of people was like 8,000 or more. I made a very big decision, Biden told the New York Times, of the 25 pardons and commutations that the Autopen was used from December 24 to 25. There were not just 25 pardons. There were 8,000 or more. Without a doubt, this was the most pardons any president has given. And that includes probably the last 20 presidents all combined. Of course, it begs the question that has been begged on this program, how many people were paying for this? You know, I mean, this is a very lucrative operation. You can use the Autopen to get a bunch of people out of jail. Those are very rich people often. Sometimes they're very rich people, or they have rich friends, and you just pay for it. Pay to play. Biden addressed the pardons he made of prominent figures like his family, or Mark Milley, or Dr. Fauci. The former president only signed one pardon with his own hand from December to January, and it was his son, Hunter Biden. Probably Hunter Biden actually going in with that pardon and forcing him to sign it. The former president told the outlet that he addressed each high-profile pardon personally with his aides. Everybody knows how vindictive he is, so we know that they'd do things that they're doing right now, says Biden. Oh, okay. Saying he wanted to shield his family from larger legal bills and potential fines. I consciously made all the decisions, he added. Really? Really? Why don't you go pick a name of the 8,000 and ask Joe Biden who that person is? Why don't we try that? Why don't we try that under congressional investigation, which is what's happening right now? The New York Times also reviewed dozens of emails given over to the Trump administration by the Department of Justice as part of their investigation into the use of the Autopen during Biden's presidency. The outlet did not review the entirety of the emails. Of the dozens of emails reviewed by the New York Times, found that the former president's staff had a process to assure that Biden gave verbal approval of the use of the Autopen, which was used by the staff secretary, Stephanie Feldman. Aides who participated in the verbal meetings with the former president said he gave permissions for such use and would draft emails of the accounts, including to the New York Times. Some of those senior staffers included Jeff Zients, White House. Jeff Zients, of course, is the guy who censored you for criticizing the COVID vaccine or any of the COVID policies. And then Jeff Zients goes on to become White House chief of staff and signs the pardon for Dr. Fauci. Isn't that amazing? So they silence you for criticizing Fauci, and then they sign a pardon for Fauci. What a country. Forgive me. Been a long weekend. At the January 19th meeting, which took place in the Yellow Oval office room, White House residence, the Yellow Oval room, White House resident, Mr. Biden kept his aides until nearly 10 p.m. to talk through such decisions, including people familiar with the matter. The emails show that an aide, Mr. Siskel, sent a draft summary of Mr. Biden's decisions on the meeting to the assistant, Mr. Zients, copying Mr. Siskel. The assistant forwarded to asking for the approval and set the final versions, copying many of the participants and the aides. Reporting continues. 3 minutes later, Mr. Zients hit reply all and said, I approve the use of the Autopen for the execution of the following pardons. So there you have it. So you have someone who's not Joe Biden approving of the pardons. His name's Jeff Zients. Those who know have been on this program explaining to us that he is the man who is truly responsible for all of this. Towards the end of the administration, when Biden granted clemency and pardons in large batches, the former president didn't personally approve each name, but signed off on criteria and standards for such. The email showed, according to the New York Times report, communications on such had to be run by the former president before being sent out, the New York Times reported. One email showed that Biden requested a tweak to one press release, according to the New York Times. In another instance, small batches of names were added to the list, but Biden wasn't notified of each adjustment, the New York Times reported. So, wait a second. Instead, the staff would run the final version through the Autopen rather than asking Biden's permission on each change. So they didn't. So they're like straight up admitting it. Why are they burying the lead here? This makes me very angry. Why are they burying? So here, this is the lead. Oh man, we need to vet better articles here. But it makes me so angry. I'm like, when can I get these guys copy editor? This is called burying the lead. This is the lead. The lead is that staffers made the decision as to who gets a pardon, and Joe Biden didn't. You can see it right here. Changes were made or names were added to the list, but Biden wasn't notified. So the staffers were pardoning people without Joe Biden's understanding or recognition. Of course, it's physically impossible to pardon 8,000 people. If you were doing it every minute of every single day for your entire presidency, you wouldn't be able to review every single file, every single case. The whole op is clearly an op that is run from some level of criminality. People pay for pardons all the time. Donald Trump has every right to be furious about this and to rage on it. President Trump just seconds ago in the Oval Office doing just that. Here we go.
On a separate topic here, President Biden, of all people, spoke to the New York Times over the weekend. He did not speak to them on the record during his time in office at all, but he spoke to them recently. And he defended his use of the Autopen and said that he signed off on every decision. But at the same time, the Times reports that he did not individually approve each name for the categorical pardons that applied to large numbers of people. What are your take on that? Any new revelations from that?
Well, I mean, you're talking about the Autopen. Look, the Autopen, I think, is maybe one of the biggest scandals that we've had in 50 to 100 years. This is a tremendous scandal. And I know the people on the other side of the, see that desk, that Resolute desk? Unfortunately, he used it before me. But, you know, we have our choice of 7 desks. They're all beautiful. But I chose the Resolute, and so did he, unfortunately. But the people on the other side of the Resolute desk, I know them. Lisa, the whole group, and they're no good. They're sick people. And I guarantee you he knew nothing about what he was signing. I guarantee it. So they're going to figure it out, and we'll see what happens. But to me, the Autopen, you know, you elected president. You know what the Autopen is supposed to do? Sign thousands of letters from young people that write. We get thousands of letters a week, Susie, right? Thousands. I mean, tens of thousands sometimes. I look at a room, there's a room where we have many, many people working, responding and sending letters back. That's what an Autopen's supposed to be. To write to a young 7-year-old boy that writes to the president and he wants to be president someday and he loves America. That's what the Autopen's supposed to be. It's not supposed to be for signing major legislation and all the things. No, the Autopen, and I doubt he knew. I doubt they even spoke to him about it. I think they had, it's called a freewheeling Autopen. Like, Biden was never for open borders. Biden was never for transgender for everyone. So I don't think I think the radical left people that took over the White House, and if I didn't win, our country was finished. You know, when I was in, and I said this a couple of times, I hope I don't bore you with it, but when I was in Saudi Arabia, I was in Qatar, I was in UAE, and then I met with all of your leaders, yes, including you, a great leader. He's now the leader of many countries, not just
No.
But I met with a lot of leaders over the last 2 months in the Middle East and all of the NATO countries. And I will tell you, they had one common phrase. They thought America was dead 1 year ago. And today they say, and they all say it, and I hope you'll back me up in this, but they say now it's the hottest country anywhere in the world. It is. Look at our numbers. Look at the numbers we made. You see, we made $25 billion last month. We didn't make that for years. The tariffs are kicking in. The economy is very strong, even though we have a Fed person who's terrible. He doesn't know what the hell he's doing, but that's all right.
It's a literal scandal. So the New York Times is straight up admitting that Joe Biden didn't approve of the pardons. He had verbal approval of the pardons. It's everything that we already knew. It's probably not shocking, but it's going to lead to a massive constitutional crisis, which is, are these actual pardons? Are they real? If Joe Biden didn't sign them, if he doesn't know about them, are they real? An interesting piece of reporting here from Peter Doocy, who deserves a ton of credit at the White House for actually bringing copies of the pardons to a press conference. I had actually forgotten about this. Check this out.
Looks different. It looks authentic. In fact, if you look at the last name, it almost looks like the president was having a hard time spelling his last name there. Is this White House of the opinion that the only pardon that would count is one that the president signed himself?
It's very interesting. Very interesting props. If you want to bring them to my office later so I can take a closer look, I would like to do that. The president is making a good point when he discusses the usage of the Autopen. Who was running the country for the past 4 years? Perhaps those documents were signed with the Autopen, something that this, I believe the Department of Justice is looking into. As you saw, Ed Martin made an announcement at the Department of Justice this morning to launch an investigation because the American people deserve answers.
It's a scandal. There's a lot of good work that's being done, and it's being done right now. And we don't want there to be these kind of distractions. So hopefully everybody will listen to Laura Trump and will listen to the Trump family and a lot of the other people who are operating in good faith. Tucker Carlson is operating in good faith. Megyn Kelly is operating in good faith. These individuals are operating in good faith. They want the administration to be successful. Steve Bannon as well. Roger Stone. They want the administration to be successful. They don't want there to be some type of cloud of uncertainty or that we just can't believe or trust anything. And the Epstein question is absolutely a test of that. And so that we need these investigations. We need them to go forth, and we need the base to be solid. Ladies and gentlemen, this of course bends itself very nicely into another massive piece of breaking news, which is that the FBI is ready to open a grand conspiracy probe on weaponization, opening the door to a special prosecutor. We may get our first special prosecutor of the administration. Something that we have been covering nonstop has been this letter that the CIA wrote saying, no, something horrible has happened here. We're not like John Brennan and James Comey and James Clapper all got together in order to rig an election and then to rig an administration out of the hands of President Trump. Probably the worst thing that they did was actually casting a pall over his first administration. Talk to anybody. The damage that the Russiagate investigation lent itself to the first admin. I mean, President Trump deserves a third term. If you really think about it logically, like what they did to him, what they did kneecapped so severely the president in his first administration. And I've said it before, again and again, like, at what point does Donald Trump get recompense here? Well, now it looks like there may be, at the very least, some justice delivered. The FBI has quietly launched an investigation into the decades of Democrat Party deep state antics from Russiagate. Conclusion to the Jack Smith special counsel, opening the door for an appointment of a special prosecutor to examine whether well-documented episode of criminal conspiracy to meddle in 3 U.S. elections and benefit the Democrats to the detriment of Donald Trump. Just the News has learned. The grand conspiracy case was opened several weeks ago by Director Patel. And he's personally taken it over and looking at and it could get a significant boost if Trump were to declassify 2 secret tranches of evidence that identify a potential ignition point to the alleged conspiracy in the summer of 2016, according to several people familiar with the inquiry. Spoke to Just the News on the condition of anonymity. Oh, really? The first piece of evidence is a classified annex to a years-old Inspector General probe of Hillary Clinton's improper email server brought by Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Grassley. That annex is believed to show the credible information and possible wrongdoing intentionally ignored by the FBI. The second tranche of evidence was identified former Russiagate special counsel John Durham in the final report. The evidence was dubbed in the report as Clinton paid intelligence. It was placed in the classified annex and kept away from the American public and every member of Congress. Excerpts from the publicly available and unclassified Durham report show that the U.S. spy agencies were aware that Clinton's 2016 campaign was concocting a bogus Russia collusion narrative to harm Trump. In the chances that the FBI would open a now discredited Crossfire Hurricane probe, in part using evidence created by the Clinton campaign and offered by Clinton associates. Both pieces of evidence have remained sealed from public view for decades and are highly classified because they reveal sensitive intelligence gathering methods. The FBI declined to comment. Oh boy. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is why you must have a little bit of critical thinking in this moment. Here's why. If they're this close to blowing the lid off of this grand criminal conspiracy, then why not drop the Epstein op? Yeah, I'm not saying that the Trump administration's handling of this has been perfect. It's been, in fact, the opposite, in my opinion. But the memo is unsigned, and it was leaked. And I can't figure out who the hell leaked it, or why it's unsigned, and why nobody feels like they can defend it. It does seem to have come out of absolutely no, left field. And again, if you're going to leak something like that, then why do it on July 4th weekend after a series of historic wins by the president? It's been a massive distraction. It's been nightmarish. It's been bungled. And nobody's really explained it at all to the American people. Is this a deep state op? Is this like what they did with the Dobbs decision? The Dobbs decision to overturn Roe v. Wade. They leaked it in order to try and damage the Supreme Court. I don't know. Who the hell leaked it exactly? I can't get a straight answer on that. Maybe the memo was being written. The memo is live on the DOJ website. I'm not saying that the memo is fake. It is real. But is it in its final form? It's certainly not signed. It's not dated. It sort of reads like a draft. And then the video sort of looks like a draft. The video is unexplained as well. The whole thing is messy and odd. And it does beg the question, is this part of an op to discredit President Trump and his administration before they released the real stuff? The real cooks in the kitchen were these guys, the directors of the FBI and the CIA, conspiring in order to rig an election with a bunch of Russian spies. Of course, Russia interfered in the 2016 election on behalf of Hillary Clinton. The PP dossier, all of it was written by Russian spies. So, obviously, clearly they did. And that seems like a huge problem for the deep state. It is a massive problem for the deep state. And maybe some of this Epstein smoke and mirrors, maybe a lot of this stuff, again, I'm not giving a pass to the Trump administration for this, it's been very poorly handled. But were they the ones who leaked it? If so, explain yourselves. How could you possibly justify leaking that document or that evidence, in this time period and to this outlet? It seems like a deep state op. Maybe the Trump administration got, I'm just off the top of the dome here, but you've seen it happen before. Maybe this was leaked in order to damage them, and they weren't prepared for it. And there's a scintilla of truth to it, meaning they were working on the memo, but that has caught everybody off, off their back foot. Just a thought. Because what we just covered is that's the real deal. People will go to prison for life for this. It's traitorous. We'll see, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see. Our verse of the day, as we come to the conclusion of at least our live show today, is from Romans 12:19. Abhor what is evil and cling to what is good. Boy, we saw what was good this weekend. It was just amazing. We met thousands of you and plenty of people who subscribe. It is our great honor to deliver truth to you. It is our charge. We even brought the family on stage. Please grab me one of those photos, please. We brought the family on stage, and I didn't do a full on my speech was trying to be uplifting because, quite frankly, I want to show people why we fight so hard against people like Epstein. I fight so hard because, well, I have a family, and I love them, and they're why I fight. And we say it often on the show. You got to get me. That's right. There's a little bit why we're stuffy is we were definitely burning the midnight oil and doing a lot of meetings and a lot of exciting things going on. But this was why. And I think it's important to obviously show our values here. And it was our great honor to do that. And to connect with you and to continue to fight on. To protect protecting children, doing this kind of stuff, it's not just something that we bang on the show. It's a lifestyle. It's something that we believe in our heart. It's something that we practice. It's a charge that's been given to us by our Creator, by our God, by our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Abhor what is evil and cling to what is good. What is good is having a family, raising our American children, putting our American children first, and continuing a legacy, having a true legacy on Earth, a dynasty, in fact, that you can actually have if you have 4 kids. It's available to all of you. But it gives you a great motivator, and it makes this a very simple binary decision. Final thing, I read some of the comments this weekend. Everyone's like, you're so brave to come out and speak on this. You're so brave. No, man, it's a very simple binary. Like, it's very obvious when you have kids. The question of child trafficking, there's no ambiguity there. You don't protect these people. You burn them and everybody they know to the ground, and you ensure that they know pain, right? You don't give them amnesty. You don't give them sweetheart deals. You destroy them, and you destroy everyone. That's what makes it so strange, this story, and it's why we won't let go. Dog's got a bone, ladies and gentlemen, and we are very proud to be your fighter and be fighting with you. And remember, in the end, we win. It's your boy Benny. See ya.
Come see what Elmo did.
What have you done, Elmo?
Well, Elmo wrote his own song. Do Snuffy and Big Bird want to hear it?
Oh, sure.
Okay. They don't understand the things I say on Twitter. All my neighbors, MAGA. Name Fauci.
So, where the truth gon' be? Faith and freedom on your TV screen. Stand up strong, battle through the night. The Benny Show's here, bringing liberty to light. From the speeches to debates, Benny sharp like a blade. Cutting through the lies, watch the truth cascade. With the warrior's heart, this man never fades. You know it's prime time when Benny invades. From saving the nation to stories untold, the Benny Show's a storm, see the truth unfold. Stay in the loop, let freedom take hold. Salting all the libs, soul never sold. It's the Benny Show, where the truth gon' be. Faith and freedom on your TV screen. Stand up strong, battle through the night. The Benny Show's here, bringing liberty to light. Liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Liberty to light. Bringing liberty to life. From the speeches to debates, Benny sharp like a blade. Cutting through the lies, watch the truth cascade. With the warrior's heart, this man never fades. You know it's prime time when Benny invades. From saving the nation to stories untold, the Benny Show's a storm, see the truth unfold. Stay in the loop, let freedom take hold. Salting all the libs, soul never sold. It's the Benny Show, where the truth gon' be. Faith and freedom on your TV screen. Stand up strong, battle through the night. The Benny Show's here, bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light.